Good morning. As my dad said, I've been married to Edric Mendoza for almost 8 years. And by God's grace, it has been a marriage that has gotten better over the years. Before I put together this testimony, I asked my husband if I can share some things from our marriage, just to get his permission, in the spirit of submission. And he said it's okay. I came into marriage very idealistic. Like most women, I was excited to spend my life with a man that I loved and respected. I didn't think that submission to my husband would be an issue for me. Why? Because I grew up in a Christian home where submission was talked about and where my mom role modeled submission. In a way, I thought that maybe submission is actually genetically wired into me, and so it won't be a problem, but it wasn't. You see, even if I had married the man of my dreams, reality quickly set in after the honeymoon, the reality of our different personalities. For example, when I asked him during our first year of marriage, "Hon, what is your language of love?" he said to me, "Service. I love to be served." In my heart, I was thinking, Lord, of all the languages of love that he could have chosen, why did it have to be service? I remember when he would ask me for a glass of water, and I was thinking in my heart, our apartment is so small, I don't understand why it's a mystery for him to look into the refrigerator and find the pitcher of water right there. It's not difficult, but he asked me to do it. And so although I would submit outwardly, in my heart, I was resistant. I also began to focus on my husband's flaws. Really, he didn't have many, but there was one in particular that bothered me. He tended to get irritable when he was hungry, hot, or tired. And I didn't like this at all. As a result, I tried to correct him, and I began to fixate on the areas of his life that I wanted him to change. This led to disrespect in me, and I started to question his leadership and his decisions. It came out in things like, "Hon, I notice you're not really having your quiet time. Are you having a regular prayer time? Or when do you plan to read through the Bible?" And then, let's say if he was driving, I'd also say things like, why are you turning here? Don't you think you should turn this way? Are you sure you know where you're going? And because of the way I related to my husband in our first year of marriage, he became hurt, and we were both very frustrated. I bet my husband felt very much like that verse in Proverbs 21, verse 9, which says, "Better to live in a corner of the roof than share a house with a quarrelsome wife." I tried to change him, and he tried to change me, and at one point I even thought to myself, why did I even get married? During our second year of marriage, God began to put in me a strong conviction to really pray for my husband. As I began to pray for him, my heart started to change. I started seeing the positive, the very positive traits of my husband, and more importantly, God revealed to me areas where I needed to change. My approach became the gentle and quiet spirit approach. If I didn't agree with something that he had decided or a decision he had made or something he was doing, I would appeal to the Lord and I would say, "Lord, if this is something that he's doing that is not right, please change his heart or do something about it." For example, very recently my husband started to play with his PS3. You all know what a PS3 is, I suppose. And he is a very hardworking man, but sometimes to distress, he would play with this PS3. Now, I began to be distressed about it, because in my heart, I thought, I don't want my children seeing computer games as something that's done in our home. I don't want them to develop that habit. But as a wife, I knew I can't just correct my husband about this. So what did I do? I said, "Lord, please help my husband to do something more profitable with his time, and please help him to stop playing computer games." And I prayed about this regularly. Amazingly, two things happened. The first was one night, I went into our bedroom and I saw my husband, instead of playing computer, he was sitting on the bed and he was reading a Christian book. And usually at this time, he would de-stress playing computer. And then number two, a second thing happened. One day he went to turn on his PS3, and the way our house is, the dining room, you can see the living room where the PS3 is. And I saw him out of the corner of my eye because I was doing something in the dining room. And when he tried to turn on the PS3, it would not turn on. And I remember him saying, "Hon, did anybody mess with my computer?" And I said, no, not that I know of, which was true. I didn't think that the kids had touched it or anything, and I was really kind of curious to see what was going to happen. And then I saw him also out of the corner of my eye trying to shake the component, the system. And then he set it down, and the most ridiculous, divine thing happened. Hundreds of ants came out of the PS3. And it was so bizarre. And it was really shocking. And then he turned to me and he said, "Hon, have you been praying about me playing computer games? Have you been praying about me playing computer games?" And I even pretended not to hear him. I said, "Huh? What?" But then in my heart, I was saying to the Lord, "Wow, Lord, that was really over the top. I didn't expect that." But that was not the end of the story. We brought the machine to a shop and tried to have it fixed. And guess what? They said it was impossible. I started to feel bad for my husband because it was an expensive machine, and so I prayed, "Lord, if it is your will, please help the technicians to be able to fix it." And God is an incredible God. There was a technician, this special technician somewhere in Green Hills, who was able to fix this machine. But guess what? When we brought it home, and this is where I know that God is fully in charge of everything, when my husband turned it on to play it, it would work only for 5 minutes. There was something wrong with the fan, so after 5 minutes it would overheat and shut down. So meaning he could not get to the point of really getting into the game because it would just turn off automatically. And so this is when I began to see, Lord, you really know best. As a wife, if I just trust the Lord and pray about certain things, you really know best. And that's what I've learned in marriage. God knows best. When he asks me to submit, it's unto the Lord, it's unto him. As the verse says, "Wives, submit to your husbands as unto the Lord." And until I came to that point where I understood that God is fully in charge, that he has a master plan for our marriage, and that he loves me and my husband, I was resistant to submission. Maybe not always outwardly, but in my heart I wrestled with the principle. Submission, I realized, is an impossible standard when we look at our spouses or when we do it in our own power. It is Jesus in my heart that enables me to submit. And when I'm connected to him and spirit-filled, God fills my heart with a love for my husband and a desire to please him. But when I become self-focused and selfish, I become corrective, disrespectful, and unsupportive. As I close, I want to share with you how God used badminton to teach me about the blessings of submission. When I began playing badminton, my husband was much more advanced than I was. He had played it in college and I had never played it. But he wasn't just a more advanced player, he was also a very competitive person during the games. We had this brilliant idea to be partners as a couple. Even though people said, you know, it's very hard for husbands and wives to be badminton partners, we said, let's be badminton partners. At the onset, when my husband was still training me, we were fine. But when I began to understand the game and become better at it, I found it more and more difficult to listen to him on the court. He would call out instructions and corrections in the middle of the game when I was already highly stressed, and I could also tell from his body language that he would be disappointed if I messed up on a shot. So on the outside, I would try to follow him, but on the inside, I was extremely irritated. Okay, I was seething mad. My pride was hurt. And to make myself feel better, I would start thinking of the mistakes he made. Like, well, he missed that shot, he messed up on this play too. Although they were very few compared to mine, I thought, well, you know, every shot counts. Then one day, God gave me an epiphany. He said, Joy, why don't you try to be a gentle and quiet spirit on the court, listen to him positively, and humble yourself. When I started to do this, my husband became more patient with me, we played better as a team, and we really began to have fun. Today, we have so much fun playing together as partners that we only want to play as a couple. God taught me through our badminton games that as a woman, I have the unique responsibility and privilege of affecting the climate of our marriage. When I am supportive and think about how to be a blessing to my husband, he too is positive, encouraged, motivated, and understanding. I am loved the way I desire to be. Conversely, when I insist on my way, only think of my needs, and refuse to support and submit to my husband,